The Blender Foundation has released Blender 3.6, the latest version of the open-source 3D software, and its latest long-term support release. It's a significant update, with new features ranging from the long-awaited node-based simulation system to support for hardware-accelerated ray tracing on AMD and Intel GPUs. Below, we've picked out 5 of the most significant changes, along with updates to the core toolsets like character rigging and animation, and hidden gems like the new Ply importer for 3D scan data. 1. Support for simulations in geometry nodes. Undoubtedly the most hyped, and also one of the most delayed. New feature in Blender 3.6 is initial support for simulations in the geometry nodes toolset. A goal even before the toolset was first introduced in Blender 2.92, the change moves geometry nodes from being a procedural modeling and object scattering system to being a node-based effects system. Although it still has a very long way to go before it becomes a practical alternative to tools like Houdini, the simulation nodes are already capable of a reasonable range of effects. Official demo files cover particle systems, geometry fracturing, 2D effects, and even soft body dynamics of a pudding, while user-created demos range from flocking sims to procedural animation. Simulations can be cached or baked to disk via a new Simulation Nodes panel in the Physics tab in the Properties editor, although baking is limited in the initial release and has a number of known limitations. There are also performance improvements to geometry nodes in general, with memory usage reduced by at least 25%, and speed boosts of at least 10x when converting between geometry types. 2. Hardware-accelerated ray tracing on AMD and Intel GPUs. Another key change in Blender 3.6 is support for hardware-accelerated ray tracing on AMD and Intel GPUs and Cycles, the software's main production renderer. Although Cycles already supported GPU rendering on AMD and Intel hardware, lack of dedicated support for the ray tracing cores in the cards meant that performance was significantly lower than on NVIDIA GPUs. Cycles has supported hardware-accelerated ray tracing on NVIDIA GPUs since 2020 via NVIDIA's OptiX API. For AMD users, GPU ray tracing is officially supported on consumer Radeon RX 6000 and 7000 series cards and Radeon Pro W6000 and Radeon Pro W7000 series workstation cards via AMD's HIP-RT library. Support for AMD GPUs is still officially experimental and is available only on Windows, not Linux. For Intel users, GPU ray tracing is supported on data center GPUs and the new Arc Workstation GPUs via Embree 4.1, the latest version of its previously CPU-only ray tracing libraries. In the Blender Foundation's tests using an Intel Arc A770 GPU, enabling hardware ray tracing improved performance on the standard Blender benchmark scenes from 10-40%. 3. Faster scene loading and light tree building in Cycles. Even if you don't use AMD or Intel GPUs, there are also a number of performance improvements to Cycles that will be significant in day-to-day work. In particular, large geometries load much quicker, with meshes loading 4-6x faster, while loading point clouds can be 9x faster and loading curves can be 10x faster. The new light tree introduced in Blender 3.5 now supports multi-threading and instancing, and builds up to 11x faster on an Apple M1 processor. Mac users using Cycles Metal backend also get support for NanoVDB, NVIDIA's simplified representation of the OpenDB data structure, reducing memory use when rendering volumes. However, one major new feature in Cycles has been postponed. Support for light linking, originally due in Blender 3.6, has now been pushed back to Blender 4.0. 4. Faster, more efficient UV packing. Blender's UV packing engine has also been overhauled, dramatically improving performance on large meshes. According to the release notes, extracting UV map data for viewport drawing is up to 3x faster. Efficiency of UV packing has also been increased, as shown in the side-by-side comparison between the default UV layouts generated by Blender 3.5 and Blender 3.6 above. New features include the option to choose the shape of the approximation used for UV islands during packing. There are now options for exact shape, convex hull, and bounding box. It is also now possible to place UV seams manually when using spherical or cylindrical projection, and the Select Similar operator has new options for similar winding and for similar object. 5. Support for more advanced nodes in the Viewport Compositor. The new Viewport Compositor introduced in Blender 3.5 has also been significantly extended. While the initial implementation only supported basic filter nodes like blur and lens distortion, the 3.6 update adds support for 13 more advanced nodes, including denoise, mask, and stabilize 2D. The Viewport Compositor also now supports multi-layer EXR files. Eevee, Blender's real-time renderer, gets a new transparent render pass containing alpha blended surfaces so that transparent materials can be adjusted in the compositor. Hey guys, if this video is useful, give thumbs up to this video and subscribe the channel. Thank you.